Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry about the delay there. Let me post that I am live now. Here, I was wrapping up another call, and it was all in the name of good stuff, I promise. But just running a little bit late here. Let me pull up some of the information, get the chat window going, and we are going to go live here. So, a couple of names that I'm watching here. Interesting stuff. Yeah, excessive trading can get exhausting. So sometimes you got to take a break from the charts. And I mentioned that from time to time is, yeah, even if you take like 1 or 2 days away from the chart, it feels like forever. It's like, oh man, I haven't traded in like 36 hours. Getting the shakes here. Oh yeah. So anybody catch my Death Cross video yesterday? Seems to be getting some controversial comments. I love it. Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, the entire point that I was trying to make was the death cross, the 50-day crossing below the 200-day. It doesn't matter in terms of trading. Like it just doesn't matter. It's a non-event in terms of timing entries and exits. Because if you're waiting for the death cross to get out of the way, you are way late. The bear market has already happened, right? And vice versa on the golden cross. Like that's just not generally a good indicator. So the whole point of my video was like everyone's talking about it, and Tone Vay's talking about it, and all of his videos and major news outlets are talking about it, and it's like who cares? I mean, it's something to talk about, I guess, right? I mean, it sounds dramatic, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, it's not going to really change the picture a whole lot, to be honest with you. Maybe it confirms that's all it does, right? It's like it confirms, yep, we're in a downtrend, but you don't really need the death cross to tell us that. But all right, so that was it was kind of a fun video to make. Maybe I'll do some more of those kind of educational type pieces as things come up. But yeah, so let's see here. Bitcoin, is it done? Is it trying? So let me zoom out first let me turn off some of my noisy indicators here, and I will talk about those here in a little bit. So we had the pullback. We had the initial sell-off yesterday, and I posted late in my evening that it ultimately was the level I was watching was at 9,200 area, and I actually had put a conditional buy order out at 9,200, and then the reason I went so high is because we had this one wick. Let me go to Coinbase because I want to show you guys something. We had this one wick that took us as high as 91.74, and I thought, okay, that was right before the big pullback, and so I'm not going to buy until it gets over this 91.74 on a conditional basis, just because I couldn't watch the charts, and I hate when you put a conditional buy order and it does one of these where it like pops above and then it just tanks on you. Just really annoying. So I thought I'd be willing to get in a little bit later, but it's got to get above 92 for me to get in. And then this morning waking up, I see that the price is down, but I see that it went up a little bit. And initially I had that, oh crap, I bet you I got filled and then it tanked. But it didn't, luckily. So it went as high as 91.70 or whatever, and then you're just kind of 9100. But so that was it. We finally seen the little bit of the pullback that I was kind of waiting for, honestly, kind of been hoping for. So we're seeing this. We saw that initial big volume break to the downside. The rally here was a little bit kind of weak. By the time I stopped watching the charts, it was like right around here. It's probably about midnight in my time. And I was almost tempted to just kind of like check on it again because I was seeing this little flag form. And I'm thinking, okay, this is probably going to dump, but it'd be interesting to see if it breaks out. But then it just kind of had that second leg down. And here we are on the 1 hour. You can see the RSI hit a pretty good low, sub 30. We're bouncing right now, but we're only hitting the moving average at this point. So I'm not convinced yet. This bull momentum index is not turned favorable yet on the hourlies. It did a little bit on the 30 minutes, but that's a little bit more noisy. It went to 65, which is generally what I want to see, but it couldn't break above. Pulling in now, if it turns the corner here, that may be the signal, right? If we start getting above, that's 8,700. But the buy zone that I was talking about was, this 86 down to maybe 83, 84 or so. And so that's what I was looking for there. And we did hit that buy zone earlier today. And so now I'm just watching to see was that just the first dip and then we're going to go lower, or is that it and we're going to go higher from here? I'm mixed right now. I'm still not bullish yet, but some of the alts are still looking pretty good here. You got me on mute. Oh man, that's funny. All right, so but that's basically it. So I'm watching for this zone here. This was a pretty good little support bar. We saw some volume come in here. It just feels like a little bit of an oversold bounce at this point. That's all it kind of feels like. It was very oversold in the 5 minutes. You can see here, let me clear this. You can see here at the 5 minute, we started to get that bullish divergence that I watch for. Tends to make for a good short-term entry, and we had a higher RSI here near the lows and it started to rally. Seeing some pretty good action here in the very, very short term, right? I mean, this is the 5 minute bar. So you're seeing some buy volume coming in there. There was some big volume here at the lows. And so maybe it's found a good little bit of a low, but that's pretty short term. I'm looking at more either the 30 minute, the 1 hour to kind of really time an entry here is potentially scaling back in. If we continue to rally higher, on the upside, the first big test is going to be this little zone now, right? That support area that was holding, finally cracked. That's going to be the big test. So nothing wrong with getting in here. You can keep a pretty tight stop if you want around this 8,400 mark, just below. And then test is going to be getting back above that 8,850, 8,900 or so. And so it may make for a little bit of a counter trend rally if we can break above, but you're talking 2%. I mean, that's really, is it worth the risk 2% to the upside for a potential 2% stop loss, right? I'd rather just kind of scale in on the dips and then watch this 8,300. If that starts to give, then the psychological 8K is going to be the area that I'm going to be watching, in and around this level. If you do a fib retracement on this bounce, you can see that the 618 level on the fib is around that 8K, all right, 79.97 here on this Coinbase. So that's going to be kind of the biggie, right? That's if we continue to pull back on the 4 hour, that's the level that I want to see it hold. If this bounce off the lows was a good low, right? If it was the low, if it holds this, that's going to be very favorable in terms of changing the all-around picture. In terms of the big picture, right? Just because you have this big pullback off the double top, and we rallied, we had this low, tried to rally, couldn't. We had the deeper low at at 7K, which was higher than this low, which is very positive, right? The February low. And so if we can come back, test maybe 8K and hold 8K and start to go up from there, that's going to really change the tone on the big picture, because now you're going to really start creating this series of strong higher lows here on this chart, and a little bit of a trend, right? Where like now it's like 8K is the next floor, and so just kind of looking ahead, that's what I'm wanting to see happen here. I wanted to see this picture start changing in terms of, okay, this February was pretty good, because at this point, no one's really sure yet, right? If the February low was the low, right? Like if that was the big washout, and now we're just kind of accumulation zone, kind of base building here around this zone, and holding that would really help to paint that picture. The low we saw here a couple days ago around that low 7K range helps solidify that case a little bit, but now it's the test, right? If it breaks below that 7K here on the daily and starts to go lower, then it's it's kind of like, well, that was just a bounce. That's all it was. And at this point, there's a good case to be made that that's all it was, right? If you look at the the pullback here off the double top, you can see we've basically rallied right into that 382 level, and that's it. And we're kind of pausing. We went a little bit higher, but that's really it. And now we're pulling back a little bit. So, you can still argue that, hey, this was just a bounce. That's all it was. It was a counter trend rally. It was a bounce in the bigger picture of the bear mode. But the altcoin market, some of the moves off the lows are very encouraging, kind of telling me that, hey, I think maybe, at least for the alts, maybe some of the worst is behind, or they're ready to start building a low here, and we're going to start to base out and put some good lows on the altcoin market. So that's what I'm looking at. So far, it's not too bad. This daily bar has another 4 hours left to go. But if the volume finishes at or even below yesterday's volume, very positive, right? Because you can see the big green volume up here on the bounce. If we have some lighter selling days and then we see another big green volume day, then you can feel pretty confident that that was probably a pretty good intermediate low, and this trend will continue to those targets that I initially had on the bounce, 97, 9800, and then above that, we'll have to go from there, 10K and so forth. Higher lows on the 15-minute. Let me take a look at that 15-minute chart here. Yeah, and so that's looking pretty good, right? That's kind of marching higher. The RSI is marching higher. Everything's kind of pointing towards the shorter term time frames are actually looking pretty good now. The 5-minute, now the 15-minute, and that's how this happens, right? The short term time frames roll up, and then the hourlies will start to roll up, and then 4 hour and so forth. But ultimately, we want to see this daily picture really start to turn. And you can see here on this index, right, like the most that this got on the daily was to 55. So it was kind of just in a neutral zone, didn't really turn full bullish yet. We'll have to wait and see when that happens here. So, all right, let's look at a couple of names real quick, some other names that I have on my list. In terms of some of the scanning I was doing earlier, I haven't looked at the names here in the last hour, so this is not fully refreshed yet. Let me see here. Where is that? Where's my other file? Hold on. Okay, here we go. So Quantum was one that I was watching here. It has been, it had that huge run earlier in the week and has been in a little bit of a pullback mode. And so there's a couple of levels to watch on Quantum. Looking at the Quantum USD chart, right, on the daily, that big downtrend still in play. And you can see that this big rally basically went to that downtrend and is pulling back now. But I want to see this hold the moving average now, which also happens to be the 382 level on this little rally. So if it pulls back and holds that or starts to base out around here, that's going to be very good in terms of changing the picture. You can see the buy volume here was pretty strong. Now, there was a lot of profit taking here, but the sell volume is not that big yet. So that's good. If you zoom in a little bit on the 4 hour, it's trying, but I want to see this downtrend taken out right now. But it's putting in a little bit of a bull flag. You don't want this to go too much further. If this can start to settle out around here and turn the corner on this 4 hour chart or even the hourlies, that's going to be a pretty good signal there. So that's what I'm looking for on the downtrend for Quantum USD, and I'll show you the BTC pair. So I'll be watching this trend line. This is a pretty good low right now. If it starts to hold up, or if we see some better volume come in, this may be an entry. Versus BTC, you can see it's doing the same thing. Here's the fib on the bounce, and we're basically just below. We went below the 3.2. We're bouncing a little bit here. On the 4 hour, that's pretty good. A little undercut, but it's still below the moving average, so you got to wait. But the positive thing here is, look at the volume. I mean, there's very little sell volume here so far at the lows versus the big buy volume that we saw showing up into the run. And so that's positive. Now we just got to wait and see, is this it? Is that going to be the pullback and we start to march higher? And then that's going to set up for a nice secondary entry. And in the bigger picture, that's going to really help solidify that, hey, that was a big trend change here. And maybe we're going to start turning the corner and moving higher here. And so if that happens and we start to see this on a lot of names across the board, especially the bigger names, then that's going to further solidify the case that, hey, these alts are done going down. And start moving more out of BTC into some of these names. And instead of kind of taking the quicker trades where we're in for just 1 or 2 days or a few hours, then you can start doing a little bit more swing style plays where you buy the pullbacks, but then you can give it 7-8% to the downside so you don't get shook out. But you're banking on, hey, I'm going to hold this for a week or so, or maybe even longer, and I'm going to capture a bigger move in the end, right? So that's ultimately where we want to get, right? When we start to do, the type of trades where we were seeing like in December, right, where you saw, over the course of 11 days, this thing went up 500%. I'm not expecting that level of bullishness yet, but it'd be nice to get where you can hold this for 11 days or 10 days or something and get a pretty decent, double-digit turn on some of these names. So I'm hoping we get to some sort of a better swing trading markets. Those are always a little bit funner, and you don't trade as much, and you tend to have bigger moves if you could stay on the trend longer. But that's the name of the game, is catching the trend and identifying those trend changes and then staying with the trend as long as it holds. And to date, just because of the market, most of the time we're in it for a couple of days max because of that. So Quantum's looking pretty good. It's on the top of my list right now. Icon, man, I thought Icon was never going to go down ever again. It was just a tremendous run on some of that. And here we are putting a nice little bull flag, and it looks like it wants to break out. I had an alert on this little bit of a channel earlier today, and it pinged me, got that alert. And so it didn't quite pull back as much as I would have thought, honestly. I thought this would have pulled back a little bit more following that crazy move up. Let me change this here real quick. I want to see if I don't use the 2-3 fib ratio. Most of the time, it's not really a number that matters in terms of holding, but that looks like that's where this one came down to, is the 0.23 ratio on the fib cycle. And so maybe that was it. I'd like to see one more test, and then if it holds, then maybe that's it, and we go from there. But this one's looking pretty good. Now, in the big picture, it's still a little bit overdone, in my opinion. But the daily, the daily RSI is only at 60, so if this thing wants to keep marching higher, it has plenty of room to do so. And you can't argue with the volume here. I know it was based on news and all that stuff, but everybody loves this project. You can't argue with the fact that the volume just came in. Korea is on board. Like, this is very positive. And so big picture, I think we're going to see more upside, longer term holds. I think it's definitely has a place in the portfolio from a long-term perspective. So I'd be looking at that. EOS. So EOS is another one that's been very strong. Looking pretty good off the lows here. Finally turned the corner, and the volume's really coming in on that daily. Just gave us a secondary entry point here a few hours ago, and here it is rallying again. I would caution a little bit. I've seen a little bit of a divergence here on this second leg up, right? You can see that kind of showing up, but that doesn't mean that RSI doesn't just keep going higher if this thing continues higher. So that's all, but I would just be a little cautious there. But you're kind of hitting that breakout point now. But EOS is looking pretty good. If you look at EOS USD, very strong action. You can see this is a prior uptrend. A couple of things I was watching on this guy is, let me clear this line here. You can see the prior resistance, now support, right? That was kind of the big breakout point. And we pulled back basically to that, undercut it slightly, but then big volume came in, pushed it right out of that zone on the hourlies, and here we are marching higher. So again, a little bit of a divergence, but this one came down pretty far on the RSI, and so maybe it was just kind of cooled off a lot, and we're going to head higher. But EOS is looking pretty strong here, and again on the daily, has plenty of room to run, technically speaking. So if this thing wants to keep going, from a swing trade perspective, I think there's still some more upside on that one. So I'm looking at EOS. This is top of my list right now. If it gives a little bit of a dip or a pause like it's doing now, maybe worth jumping on, and then just kind of keeping a little bit of a stop on it. What do I mean a divergence? On the RSI, let me show you here. So you can see, sorry, on the, well, anyway, I'm going to be watching for, right, how high does this go? I know it just pulled back quite a bit. on the USD pair or the BTC pair was showing a little bit of a non-confirming. You can see the RSI was kind of lower, but this is already moving higher. But you tend to see that a little bit when it has that big of a pullback. So not too worried. You just got to make note of it initially in terms of potential strength here on this latest leg up. All around, though, it looks good, especially on that daily chart. It's just looking really good there. Let's see here. What else did I have? I talked Quantum, EOS, ICX, Cardano. So here's Cardano daily. I mean, big picture, you could just see how far Cardano came down. One thing to note on that is, it broke down from this base here, way back here, and that was a good level of support. It was holding and broke down, rallied, couldn't get above. And this rally basically went to that little bit of a zone. We're pausing right now. It's healthy consolidation. This is on the daily. You can see the fib levels, right? I mean, it basically came down just a little bit above the 3-2, still holding the moving average. All around, looking pretty good. On the 4-hour chart, that's a nice little flag that it's forming on the downside here. And so something to watch, probably a good secondary entry point. You can see that that's, the little flag that it's forming. The 3-2 level was right down here. Didn't quite get there, but it's looking pretty good. Volume is a little bit bearish on that final drop here, but we'll see if it can recapture some of this moving average, clear this flag. But right now, it's not too bad. Maybe worth a potential secondary entry here. But some of these, unfortunately, the stop's got to be a little bit wider. If you take them here, right, you got to be 4 or 5%. But that may not matter if we even get to the highs and take this out. If we take out this yellow line, in terms of the closing above this little area here, that's going to be positive. You can see this little consolidation there. That's going to be the next level to watch on some potential resistance here. But that's basically right above that yellow line. So if we close above that, it'll probably shoot right through that. So looking pretty good. IOTA, this one had a little bit deeper of a pullback. So looking at IOTA on the BTC side first, it's pulled back. There's a couple of areas to watch. This yellow line is kind of the breakout point we touched and we rallied from, pulled back. At least we're not that far back. We went higher than that. Still below this moving average. So I want to see this regaining some strength here on the 4-hour. On the 1-hour, though, it's trying to turn the corner here. Maybe it found a pretty good low here. We're seeing some volume coming in. So that's the level to be watching. It's kind of in middle zone right now. And on a lot of these, right, the key is really just, we're going to start taking this trend out. Doesn't necessarily have to go straight up, right? It can kind of maybe meander and start doing that, but at least it's going sideways and building a little bit of a base. And then you start looking for a breakout from that point. IOTA USD, similar story there. You can see the support here is pretty clear. The breakout point, it touched almost to the dollar, to the penny there. It's trying to rally, but it's still below that trend line right now. So that's kind of what I'm watching, right? I'm just waiting to see if do we start taking this out and then confirming or even going sideways and then basing out and then going higher from here. So look for that on IOTA, but that one's looking pretty good. Link was another one I've been watching. I liked Link. It had a little bit of a breakout yesterday and then just pulled right back to that breakout point in and around there. Also trying to bounce a little bit here. So I'm watching this here to see if it can confirm that breakout and go higher. At least it doesn't you don't want the breakout to fail and just totally undercut. Having a throwback to the breakout point is pretty common nowadays, but you don't want it to go too deep. Binance, another similar story. We had this big breakout. I didn't jump on it. I was almost going to get on it yesterday. It was just looking so strong. But then we had the big reversal. Now, granted, this was news driven. A little bit of a FOMO, or not a FOMO, a little bit of a FUD story there with, Japan regulators saying, Binance hasn't registered their exchange. But they came out and just kind of really squashed that, which is very positive. But it's, in my opinion, it's kind of still in the buy zone here. Just the support level down here that it's touched twice is about 6%. So you got to give it a little bit more in terms of price. But I mean, if it touches there a third time, it probably wouldn't be good. It might form a little bit of a head and shoulders. So you really want to keep this holding here, right? Yeah, they have the Mac client now too. I haven't downloaded. I know they're still calling it beta, but that's pretty cool, man. So Binance guys, I'm telling you that as an exchange, just really, first class. They're getting there. They want to be world class. They want to be top of the line, and I just got, if you like Binance, the company, Binance, the leadership, and the platform, and you think it's going to continue to be successful, that's when I think looking at Binance from a long-term hold perspective makes sense. And this chart is just so bullish from a long-term perspective. And we had that huge run to the $20 range, and it's just been building this big base here. And so this is just very bullish all around, right? Short-term trading, sure, can make a nice trade. Longer term, this, Binance $8 to $10 range, it's just forming a big base here. And if it starts to break out, I mean, it could very quickly get back to, $17, $20 from this point. That'd be a nice little double. So got to look at that. And I'm a big fan. Maybe I'm biased, but I think they're doing a lot of the right things. I like the leadership. CZ, he's just an amazing businessman and leader. And so if you want to capitalize on that, you buy BNB. 0x, another one I've been watching here, looking like it was trying off the lows here in the daily chart. Some pretty decent moves here. Yes, the last couple of days it was marching up very nicely, keeping a very steady trend here, and finally pausing, pulling in a little bit. Someone has a lot of BNB. BNB has been good to me from time to time. I don't have that much BNB. Not yet. So 0x. Finally breaking that trend here a little bit. So I'm kind of watching to see if maybe we form another base here, flag out a little bit. But one that looks to be potentially turning the corner here on this daily. Pretty big reversal here on the 4-hour, but so far it's just holding the moving average. So not a ton in terms of, bearishness. It's just kind of pausing after that big run it had off the lows. And this was 46% peak to peak, so not a bad little run. A lot of names had about that, but right now I'm looking for a little bit of a base. Maybe it holds here and it wants to start marching higher. So that was looking pretty good. 0x USD, similar story, except for the volume on the sell side here is a little bit more bearish, kind of big volume selling here. Now it's kind of living below that moving average. And so I'm a little bit more cautious from that perspective. District, another smaller cap name. I think they're still in the 30 million range or so. I don't know if I have it on here. Yeah, I do. It's trying to break out. You can see it had that big rally off the lows and then these big wicks here at the top as it continues to try to clear this resistance. Just couldn't. And this has kind of been a little bit of a wall. But right now it's flagging out just above or just below this area. And that's ideal. That's kind of what you want to see here. So see if it can clear this zone. If it does, especially with the moving average kind of catching up. The more it goes sideways in here, it just helps so much more from a trading perspective, because then it'll just give you a base, right? It'll give you a floor to watch, and you can set a tighter stop. You can just basically call it in and around here and give it a little bit of a tighter stop if you want to take a position and get out of the way. But this one's one to watch. What's this on the market cap here? Let me clear my Twitter. No one cares about that. Oh, wait. Coin market cap. This is a fake page. Don't register your information on here. Oh, let's see here. DNT. DNT was had a huge 10-bag run for me late last year. Initially started picking it up in the 20s here in December, and then it just went to 200 million, and I thought, yeah, that's a little bit overdone. And so I was moving out of the way, and I never got back into it. But here, looking at it again at the 20 million range, maybe something to throw a little bit at, but still, $33 million market cap. So one to look at, but it's trying. So this is on the watch list here in terms of potential trade for a breakout here. Kind of liking the way it's setting up. Yeah, I'll include Steam. We'll take a look at that one here real quick. So let me go to the daily chart on Steam. I haven't looked at this one in a while, and just my concern with Steam, and I know some of you guys were asking about it on the general channel here a couple weeks ago. It just feels like there's just a lot of overhead supply and a lot of big Steam holders that every time the price starts to rally, they start to sell into that rally. So, I'm not sure how much longer that happens for, right? Like there's been a lot of selling here and then it pulled back. There was some more selling here. And so maybe the sellers are finally exhausting. But one thing to watch here in Steam on the big picture is this little bit of an equilibrium pattern that's starting to form on the weekly. And so that's a good sign, right? It's really starting to narrow. Now, granted, that's still a pretty big range, but maybe this is starting to change the picture here and starts to rally. And that's still a ways out, right? You're still talking, a couple of months out, but that's what I'd be watching here. But near term, obviously, not as strong as some of these other names, just kind of pulling in, but the volume's really drying up, which is really surprising. I mean, it's just getting really quiet here compared to some of the buy volume back here. So that's interesting. I don't know if that just means people have lost interest in Steam and it's just drifting lower, or maybe the sellers have just given up a little bit. So yeah, the sailboat pattern. But it's just never been one that, at least lately, never has been one that interests me from a longer term hold perspective. But the funny story is on Steam. Steam is the reason I opened up a Bittrex account back in the day when they first launched, because I wanted some Steam. So I went on Bittrex and got some Steam. But I don't have any Steam right now. That was a long time ago when they first came out. When was that? Yeah, that was probably no, that wasn't 17. That was this is on Polo here. But anyway, Steam was on Bittrex 2016, I think, is when it was. But yeah, it was back here summer of 16. And that was when Steam was going crazy with him. Some big valuations there when it first launched. So picked up some Steam back in the day. But look at that. But anyway, Steam. I think I talked my current list here that I was looking at. Again, I just probably didn't get a chance to go through as many names as I initially wanted to on the market scan. I'll keep doing that today as Bitcoin tries to settle out here. Nebula was one I was watching, trying to be range bound here. I had to pull back right to the lower end of that range. So we'll see if that one holds. Mod had a big move yesterday, just kind of out of nowhere. You can see that big wick. Don't know what that means, but that was a pretty big leg up on Mod. Trying to turn the corner again, another smaller cap name. Litecoin. I'm watching a little bit of a flag here, see if it can stop. It's kind of in a little bit of a parallel channel here. Here's Litecoin on Polo, and just kind of the same action here, but it's right at a key support area here. So it looks like it undercut and bounced right now. We'll see if it can hold this level. Litecoin BTC, just range bound lately, not as strong as I would want it to be versus Bitcoin. This can turn on a dime though. Litecoin's been known to do that. So I'm kind of just watching this overall trend here, see if it can finally start to to take this out a little bit. But right now it's it's kind of getting a little bit narrow, but you can see the last few days just sideways versus Bitcoin, and so a little bit more just matching Bitcoin. ETH not looking good for the ETH. I posted this here in the charts channel yesterday, kind of saying, hey, we're kind of at decision time here. ETH was nearing this support level. This downtrend was really squeezing the price down. It's still living below the moving average, and it cracked a little bit below. Let's see if that was just a fake out and then we recover. But I got to see this thing like get back above here. And so it's just not looking too good versus BTC here. On the USD pair versus ETH, I mean, it's rallied and it came right back to this little bit of a support that it's been trying to hold here in and around that, that 520, 530 range. That's kind of the zone that if we continue to hold, then that'll be good. But it's just not a very bullish looking chart. I mean, just not looking good. And so we'll see here. Yeah, EOS is kind of dumping this, and EOS has been strong lately too. So, and I would imagine there are other very big ETH holders. So, will they dump it? Who knows? I mean, long term, it just feels like it's kind of at a low point, but I guess anything can keep going down. So this is what I'd be watching on ETH. The big picture, right? It had that big breakout. This was a big base late last year that had the massive rally from, right, that $400 or $500 range. And we've rallied and we've pretty much fully retraced that. And so from a very long-term perspective, that's going to be kind of the must hold level, right? Like this little zone right here. And we're basically there now. I mean, we went there a few days ago when we had that big sell-off. I mean, ETH was down in the 450 range. And so maybe that was it, right? But we haven't seen upside confirmation yet. Let's see here. I think I covered all the biggies. Bitcoin Cash, Bcash. Still, Bcash USD. I mean, just it's had its days, but I'm always so suspect of it because it's done that before, and it's just until it really starts to break this trend, you kind of got to be a little bit more cautious here. Here's the hourlies, just kind of sideways. Or let me go to the 4-hour, right? I mean, someone was asking about this yesterday, and maybe it's not a bad buy here, but it's not necessarily flashing any buy signals yet. It's just kind of choppy going sideways. So it just feels like it's trying to build a base here, but that trend line's still there. And until it really starts to take out some of this overhead resistance, I'm going to be cautious on the Bcash, on Rogers Bcash. So that's kind of the window to watch there. It's got to get past that to really start to convince me that, hey, maybe it's done. Maybe it's done going down. And then, of course, Bittrex still lists Bcash as BCC. And, I got a buy signal on BCC earlier, and I almost bought $1 million worth of BitConnect by accident because I thought BCC was BitConnect. I'm kidding. But same thing right there versus BTC. The line's pretty clear. And so at least it's tried. It looks like it's maybe building a little bit of a base here. This is, some pretty positive bottoming action, but it's not officially broken out yet. All right. I think that's it. That's probably all the names I had. Somebody mentioned OMG and Nano. Let me take a quick look at those. OMG, it was looking pretty strong here. Right now, it's probably just a little bit of a pullback. Let's do a fib on this real quick. How far down is it? Basically the 382 level. So if this holds and we start to hold from here, that might be a good place to look at it here. And I got to take that red one off. I tend to not use that one anyway. So let me take this off before it starts showing up on all my charts. So that's it for OMG. Might not be a bad secondary entry here with your stop basically just below this most recent low here, 1060, 1070 or so, versus BTC. Again, you can see the trend has just changed. I mean, that's basically it, right? We've had this rally off the lows. Now a lot of these alts are kind of doing this. But is it just a pullback? And do they start to go higher again? That's what we're needing to see. And we'll know that here in the next probably day or so. All right, so Nano. Let me jump over here. So Nano, it's pretty good action here at the lows. So maybe it's finally found a little bit of a base. At this point, it's just a bounce into the trend. So gotta wait to see if this one actually can close above this level and start turning the corner. But not bad. I mean, it's trying to find a low here, but it's not really confirmed. I was really liking it right here. It was setting up nice, started to break out, and then just kind of has been fizzling out. At this point, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, right? It basically bounced right into prior support, now resistance here, and that's really all we're seeing. So we got to wait for this level to be cleared here on the upside. If we can really start to clear this level, then that'll at least help. It'll look better there at that point. But right now, that's really the place to look at it. Let's see here. $10X. Poor $10X. This one, a lot of those lines still show up. Oh, they're old lines. Yeah, just man, where's the low, right? I mean, it's at all-time lows versus BTC here. Where's my line? Kind of hitting that level again. So we'll see if this one can find a bottom somewhere, but that trend is still very much in place. Hasn't rallied nearly like some of these other alts have off the lows here in the last couple of days. So definitely not one of the stronger ones here. I think that's it. So I'm doing some more research on some other names here, guys. I'm kind of spending a couple of days doing that. One thing I'm really liking, there's a few names I'm checking out, but one thing I'm really liking is Polymath. The more I start looking into that, so keep an eye on that one. If you haven't done any investigating into Polymath, I had done a little bit, but the more I start digging into that one, it's pretty interesting, right? It's kind of a nice platform, and the whole securitization aspect. So not like ICOs, but security tokens, and they're got a lot of connections to the industry, leadership board, advisory board's pretty good. So I'd be checking it out. Take a look at it. It's still relatively undervalued. You can get it on KuCoin. It's about 54 cents right now, so it's kind of near the lows. And go to their website and watch their video, watch some of their presentations that they've done, like at the blockchain events, and so real interesting stuff. So check it out. I kind of like the concept of where they're trying to go with it. Can they pull it off? That's always the ultimate question, right? Execution, the team, and all that fun stuff. But if they can, I think it's going to be a big one. So that's one I'd be watching. And right now, $130 million market cap, still relatively small compared to some of these other names. So, all right. Think that's it for now. You guys have any other ones you want to check out before I wrap it up? I got to get some lunch. I haven't had breakfast or lunch. I had coffee. I had some Starbucks. That's it. Started early and just got to it. So, all right. I'm going to give it a few seconds here. BTC. Let's go check out BTC here real quick. I've not made any moves yet, guys. I'm still waiting. Patiently waiting here. So yeah, the signals that I was watching, right, I was looking for a potential buy on the hourlies, never flashed. So I was kind of just waiting it out. 30 minutes were flashing a little bit on this little pop, but then it just kind of never confirmed to the upside. So just waiting. What would you sell the alt into? He posted a question on Slack. Let me go take a look at the questions real quick. Oh, okay. Tether, that's kind of the wild card. At this point, I am not concerned to the point where I will just absolutely refuse to go to Tether, right, from the trading perspective. So like right now, I am holding Tether with BTC kind of closing me out of my positions here yesterday. And so I am in Tether. Am I nervous about it? Have they, they say they're US and not USD. Supposedly they have another bank, some bank out of Puerto Rico, and they really have, some money in the bank. And, I'm still skeptical that they have a dollar for dollar match. I personally don't believe they do. I believe they're doing some level of fractional reserve, but what level are they, right? Is it 50%, 60%? I mean, who knows, right? That's the big question. I would be very impressed if Tether says, no, we really do have a dollar for dollar, right? And they have, $2.3 billion in the bank somewhere. That would just kind of really surprise me, but maybe they do. The bigger concern that I have for Tether is not whether they're doing fractional lending or whether they have dollars in the bank or anything like that, because even if they had some level, honestly, I think the crypto market might be like, hey, we're okay. I mean, as long as the pairing stays relatively close, we'll still do it. But my bigger concern with Tether is not that as much as it is the U.S. government or somebody coming down on them hard and saying, you're basically creating a counterfeit dollar that's totally illegal. You got to shut it down. And then they force the exchanges to not be able to use USD Tether, right? That's the bigger risk. Some sort of regulation that comes in and just totally, makes Tether untouchable. And that would pose a bigger issue, because then whether they have the money in the bank or not will not matter. And people will flee Tether, and it would, that would be bad. So that's kind of the bigger concern. Everybody would panic into BTC for sure. I think the price of Bitcoin would go up by $200 billion. It would just go up crazy because, yeah, who knows? Everything, right? It'd be like, buy anything. Use my tethers. So, all right. But then again, I'm using multiple sites, and have, some exchanges use Tether, some don't. And GDAX is dollars. So should we sell into BTC from the alts? That's a good question. I think right now you could probably go either way. Now, obviously, most alts, you got to sell into BTC first. And then the question is, do you hold your BTC, or do you go into tethers or something else, right? Then the question is that the question, right? So usually I'll sell into BTC. That's always my preference. I'd rather make BTC and then sell BTC, right? Make some higher Satoshi gains and then sell into BTC. That's always my preference. But if I get the sense that, hey, maybe Bitcoin's going to have a pretty significant drop, 5-10% or something, then I'm just going to raise some cash and go into tethers, right? So that's usually my preference, especially when it comes to trading, because I'm looking more at a monetary value gain as opposed to a BTC gain. But on a long-term portfolio, right, then maybe the preference is I want to gain BTC. So I have an alt that goes up crazy. I may just sell it into BTC and then just build up my Bitcoin. So that's kind of how I'd be doing it. Question on Polymath. Yes, it's an ERC20 token. It's not on Bittrex. I don't think it's on Bittrex. KuCoin is where I got it. Let's see, KuCoin, Poly. It's like on two of them. But it is an ERC20. And if you guys haven't noticed, like Exodus Wallet, if you use Exodus Wallet, they have a whole different section for ERC20 tokens, and they have a ton of them in there. Yeah, so this is Poly. It's still relatively limited from a exchange perspective. You got IDEX here, and then you've got KuCoin. So it'd be interesting to see if other exchanges start to use it. What about Ledger? Yeah, Ledger. That was a pretty interesting hack. Keep in mind though, that's a risk that is usually more, somebody having physical access to your ledger, and you got to be a little bit savvy of a hacker to be able to do that stuff. But my opinion is the hardware wallets are better than some of the other alternatives, right? Even a hot wallet is probably better than being on an exchange. So the best thing is always a paper wallet, unless you put it in the washer machine and it dissolves. Then that's not the best thing. But that's really it. I mean, Ledger, Trezor. I'm not familiar with KeepKey or some of the others, but I've used Ledger, Trezor. From a usability perspective, my preference is Trezor. I just like it better. Just to me, simpler. Okay. All right, my friends. Well, I apologize again for running so late into the stream here. Just wanted to get us together quickly on this Bitcoin pullback day. We'll see how it plays out here over the next few hours. Kind of approaching that buy zone again. We're trying to test it, so Just kind of sitting tight, being patient for now, but I'm keeping an eye on those alts that I mentioned in terms of maybe putting in some secondary entry points here. So, but for now, let's be patient. Try not to worry too much about the impending death cross. So, all right, guys. Thanks for joining. Talk to you everybody later. Take care.